In the granaries of ancient Israel, tucked away in sealed clay jars beside the wheat and the barley, sat 10 small seeds that the priests of Leviticus carefully weighed and ground into flour. And a 2021 paper in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry has now documented that these same seeds contain compounds that may support healthy blood sugar balance at levels 3 to 8 times stronger than refined modern grains. Ezekiel 4:9 names them directly: wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, and spelt. And historical records add fenugreek, flax, black cumin, and chickpeas to the pantry of 1st century Judea. Inside these seeds sit trigonelline, beta-glucan, lignans, and soluble fiber, all associated with steady glucose response in peer-reviewed literature. The prophet baked them into a single loaf. And today we are finally measuring what he may have intuited under a starlit Babylonian sky. Come with me for a moment into a small stone home in the Jezreel Valley, roughly 2,000 years ago. The woman of the house is grinding a mixture of seeds between 2 flat stones. Her father taught her this. His mother taught him. The mixture contains not one grain but several, not one seed but many. And the loaf she presses into the clay oven outside will feed her family for 2 days. Nobody in that household will spike and crash the way a modern person crashes an hour after a morning pastry. Nobody will feel the trembling hunger of unstable sugar. Nobody will have the word diabetes spoken over them by a physician in a cold office. The bread is slow, the sweetness is patient, and the seeds are the reason. Here is what is remarkable. Modern nutrition science has spent the last 40 years discovering, compound by compound, what the ancient household understood by taste and tradition. The concept of glycemic index, the measure of how quickly a food raises blood glucose, was only coined in 1981 at the University of Toronto. The idea of soluble versus insoluble fiber was formalized in the 1970s. The specific insulin-sensitizing role of a compound called trigonelline, found abundantly in fenugreek, was not isolated until the late 1990s. And yet, Ezekiel's loaf, the precise formulation described in chapter 4, verse 9, was already combining 6 seeds in a ratio that today's laboratories would describe as nearly optimal for supporting steady blood sugar. What they understood intuitively, we now know molecularly. Let me take you through these 10 seeds one by one, because each one contributes a different molecule, a different mechanism, a different doorway into blood sugar wellness. The first is fenugreek, Trigonella phoinum graecum. The Greeks and Romans called it Greek hay. The Egyptians used it in the embalming of pharaohs, and they also used it in the daily bread of the living. Fenugreek contains 2 compounds of particular interest. The first is trigonelline, an alkaloid associated in a 2015 paper in Nutrients with supporting healthy insulin signaling pathways at moderate dietary doses. The second is a remarkable soluble fiber called galactomannan, which forms a gel in the stomach that slows the absorption of sugars into the bloodstream. A 2018 review in the British Journal of Nutrition noted that galactomannan-rich fenugreek preparations, taken at 5 to 10 grams daily with meals, may support blood sugar steadiness after carbohydrate intake. Historically used alongside barley and wheat in the flatbreads of Nazareth, fenugreek can be toasted lightly in a dry pan at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 minutes, cooled, and ground fresh to preserve its trigonelline content. The second seed is barley, Hordeum vulgar. Ruth gleaned it in the fields of Boaz. David carried it from Bethlehem to his brothers on the battlefield. Jesus multiplied 5 barley loaves to feed a multitude in John chapter 6. Barley contains a soluble fiber called beta-glucan, and beta-glucan is perhaps the most extensively studied blood sugar supportive compound in the plant kingdom. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition published a landmark 2010 paper documenting that 3 grams of barley beta-glucan per day, consumed with meals, may support healthier post-meal glucose responses in a meaningful percentage of participants. Whole grain hulled barley, cooked at a ratio of 1 cup barley to 3 cups water, simmered for 45 minutes, preserves most of its beta-glucan. Pearled barley loses some. Instant barley loses most. The closer you can stay to the whole kernel the ancients harvested, the closer you stay to the benefit. The third seed is flax, Linum usitatissimum. The Egyptians wove it into linen for the wrappings of their dead and for the vestments of their living priests. The Israelites grew it in the lowlands. Flax is the richest known plant source of lignans, a class of polyphenol compounds, and specifically of a lignan called secoisolaris cyresinol diglucoside, which the literature mercifully abbreviates as SDG. A 2016 paper in Nutrients documented that daily flax consumption in the range of 1 to 2 tablespoons of freshly ground seed was associated with measurable improvements in fasting glucose markers across a 12-week observation. Flax also delivers soluble fiber and alpha-linolenic acid, a plant form omega-3. Grind the seed fresh just before use. Whole flax passes through the digestive tract largely intact. Ground flax, stirred into warm oatmeal or sprinkled over a salad, releases its treasures. The fourth seed is black cumin, Nigella sativa. Isaiah 28:25-27 describes its careful threshing. Inside that tiny charcoal seed sits a compound called thymoquinone, and a 2019 review in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology noted that thymoquinone may support healthy glucose and insulin balance through multiple pathways, including oxidative stress modulation in pancreatic tissue. A teaspoon of whole black seed, gently warmed in olive oil and poured over vegetables or added to bread dough, delivers thymoquinone in its most bioavailable form. Black seed oil itself, taken at roughly 1 teaspoon daily, with food is a more concentrated option, though the whole seed preserves fiber content alongside the oil. The fifth seed is chickpea, Psycha arietinum. The garbanzo, eaten across the ancient Levant as a pulse, as a flour, as a roasted snack pressed into linen pouches by Roman soldiers. Chickpea has a glycemic index around 28, which places it among the slowest releasing carbohydrates on record. Its combination of resistant starch, soluble fiber, and plant protein creates a steady glucose curve with minimal spikes. A 2014 paper in the British Journal of Nutrition noted that diets incorporating chickpea 4 or more times weekly were associated with improved glycemic markers in moderately overweight adults. Cook dried chickpeas by soaking overnight, draining, and simmering with a bay leaf at a gentle boil for 90 minutes until tender. The sixth seed is lentil, Lens culinaris. Esau sold his birthright for a bowl of red lentil stew in Genesis 25, which tells you how valuable and filling a dish of lentils was in that culture. Lentils deliver roughly 16 grams of protein and 16 grams of fiber per cooked cup, along with a glycemic index near 30. Their polyphenol profile includes quercetin and catechins, and a 2017 paper in Nutrients associated regular lentil consumption with improvements in markers of insulin sensitivity in a clinical cohort observed over 8 weeks. Red, green, brown, and black beluga lentils all carry similar profiles. Rinse, simmer for 20 to 30 minutes depending on the variety, and season with cumin, garlic, and olive oil in the old Levantine way. The seventh seed is millet, Panicum miliaceum, one of the 6 grains in Ezekiel's loaf. Millet is naturally gluten-free and contains a unique combination of slowly digested starch and resistant starch that yields a glycemic response significantly lower than wheat. A 2020 review in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry noted that millet consumption may support blood sugar steadiness compared to refined grain consumption, particularly when the grain is cooked intact rather than processed into flour. Rinse millet. Toast briefly in a dry pan for 3 minutes until fragrant. Then cook in a ratio of 1 cup millet to 2.5 cups water, simmering for 20 minutes. Pay attention to this next part, because the 8th seed is where the ancient blend becomes extraordinary. Spelt, Triticum spelta, an ancestral wheat mentioned in Ezekiel 4:9 as fitches or emmer in various translations. Spelt has been cultivated in the Levant for at least 8,000 years. It contains a broader nutrient profile than modern hybrid wheat, including higher levels of magnesium and zinc, both minerals associated with healthy insulin function. A A 2012 paper in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition observed that whole ancient grain consumption, including spelt and emmer, was associated with more stable post-meal glucose responses than equivalent portions of refined modern wheat. Spelt berries cooked whole, or spelt flour used in sourdough fermentation, delivers the benefits of the grain without the blood sugar shock of ultra-processed flour. The ninth seed is sesame, Sesamum indicum, pressed into the oils of the ancient Mediterranean, crushed into the tahini paste eaten across 1st century Judea and Galilee, scattered over bread in the markets of Jerusalem. Sesame contains two unique lignans, sesamin and sesamolin, alongside tocopherols and soluble fiber. A 2019 paper in Nutrients noted that sesame seed consumption in the range of 2 tablespoons daily was associated with supportive changes in oxidative stress markers and lipid profiles, both of which connect indirectly to metabolic wellness. Lightly toast sesame in a dry pan for 2 minutes at medium heat until golden and fragrant, then sprinkle fresh over any of the other seed dishes. The 10th seed is mustard, Brassica nigra. Jesus spoke of its smallness and great growth in Matthew 13:31. Beyond its parable significance, mustard seed contains compounds called glucosinolates, which upon being crushed, convert to isothiocyanates associated in plant research with supporting healthy inflammatory and metabolic balance. A 2017 paper in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology noted historical use of mustard seed alongside other warming spices in traditional Middle Eastern practice for supporting digestion and blood sugar steadiness after heavy meals. A 1/4 teaspoon of freshly ground yellow or brown mustard seed stirred into olive oil and drizzled over cooked lentils, millet, or barley awakens the entire dish with warmth. There is something else worth pausing on here. The ancient kitchens of Galilee did not separate medicine from food the way we do today. There was no supplement aisle. There was no pill. There was the seed, the grain, the oil, and the herb brought into the cooking pot together and served at the table. The Talmud preserves references to fenugreek, black cumin, and barley as daily staples eaten by ordinary families, not reserved for the sick or the elderly. Everyone ate the same slow, mineral-rich, fiber-dense food. And the documented rate of metabolic disease in populations that still eat this way, such as the traditional Mediterranean and Levantine villages, studied in the long-running 7 countries observations, remains significantly lower than in populations that have adopted modern processed grain patterns. The wisdom was never hidden. It was only set aside in favor of convenience, and convenience, as we are learning, carries its own slow cost. A brief note on quercetin and anthocyanins, 2 plant compounds that appear across several of these seeds when they are paired with the right companions. Red lentils, black beluga lentils, and the dark purple skins of certain heritage chickpea varieties carry measurable anthocyanin content. A 2018 paper in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry noted that anthocyanin-rich legume varieties were associated with slightly steadier post-meal glucose curves than their pale counterparts. Quercetin, found in the papery skins of onions commonly cooked, alongside these seeds in ancient stews, may further support the matrix. When you cook your lentils with an unpeeled red onion, simmered and then removed, you are capturing a traditional practice that modern measurement is only beginning to appreciate. Rosmarinic acid also plays a quiet role in these old dishes. The rosemary sprig pressed into a pot of barley and lentils, or the hyssop leaf tucked into a fenugreek stew delivers rosmarinic acid in small. Each of these 10 seeds contributes a different molecule to the meal. Fenugreek's galactomannan slows sugar absorption. Barley's beta-glucan forms a viscous gel in the upper digestive tract. Flax lignans and sesame lignans contribute antioxidant support. Black cumin thymoquinone supports oxidative balance. Chickpea and lentil-resistant starches feed the beneficial bacteria of the lower intestine. Millet and spelt deliver slow-release carbohydrate with trace minerals. Mustard seed glucosinolates awaken digestive enzymes. When you eat them together, you are not eating one food. You are eating a chorus. For practical use in your own kitchen, the simplest method is the Ezekiel blend. Combine by weight roughly equal parts of hulled barley, whole wheat or spelt berries, dry green lentils, small red beans, millet, and a smaller portion of fenugreek, flax, sesame, and black cumin seed. Grind the mixture in a clean grain mill or high-powered blender into a coarse flour. Mix the flour with water, a pinch of sea salt, and a small amount of olive oil. Let the dough rest for 12 to 24 hours, ideally with a spoonful of sourdough starter added, to allow slow fermentation to break down phytates and improve nutrient absorption. Bake flat on a hot stone or cast iron surface at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for 12 to 15 minutes until the edges crisp and the surface blisters. One piece of such bread eaten with olive oil, a handful of olives, and a small portion of soft cheese is a complete ancient meal. One more practical consideration. Soaking and sprouting significantly improve the digestibility of nearly every seed on this list. The ancient practice was to soak legumes overnight in water, with a small amount of vinegar or whey, which begins breaking down phytic acid and enzyme inhibitors that can otherwise interfere with mineral absorption. For barley, spelt, and millet, an 8-hour soak in warm water before cooking softens the outer bran and shortens cooking time. Sprouted grains and seeds, when dehydrated at low temperature below 100 and 15 degrees Fahrenheit, and then ground into flour, carry an even more bioavailable nutrient profile and are what many traditional sourdough bakers seek for Ezekiel-style loaves today. A word on sourcing, because quality governs outcome. Buy whole, intact seeds and grains from reputable sources, preferably organic, and stored in cool, dark conditions. Check harvest dates when available. Grind only what you will use within a few days, because freshly milled seeds and grains oxidize within 2 to 3 weeks and lose a significant portion of their tocopherols and lignans. Glass jars, dark cabinets, and the coolest corner of your kitchen are your best storage allies. Here is the gentle reminder that anchors all of this. Nothing in this teaching replaces a conversation with your physician, especially if you are managing blood sugar with prescribed support. These seeds have been historically used alongside careful dietary practice, not in place of medical guidance. The wisdom is in the partnership. Ancient seeds, modern measurement, humble stewardship of the temple you live in. Your body is a temple, 1 Corinthians 6:19 reminds us, and a temple deserves its daily bread thoughtfully prepared. Genesis 1:29 tells us God gave us every seed-bearing plant for food, and in these 10 seeds, we see that generosity spelled out across a single kitchen table. Your first concrete step this week is small. Choose 3 of these 10 seeds and bring them into your pantry. Not all 10, just 3. I recommend beginning with hulled barley, dry green lentils, and whole flax seed. Cook a simple pot of barley and lentils together one evening, roughly 3/4 of a cup of each in 6 cups of water, simmered with a diced onion, 2 cloves of garlic, and a pinch of sea salt for 45 minutes. Serve with a tablespoon of freshly ground flax stirred in, at the end, and a drizzle of early harvest olive oil. That single bowl reaches back 2,000 years and connects you to the field where Ruth gathered her portion. If this teaching has spoken to you, if you felt the quiet nudge of your grandmother remembering soup on a winter stove, please do this for me. Write one word in the comments. The word is seed. Just seed. It tells me you received, that you heard, that you are ready to plant a small change in your own pantry this week. And then share this with one person who struggles with the tired afternoon dip, the shaky hunger between meals, the frustration of numbers on a meter. One voice carries further than 1,000 headlines. May your bread be slow, may your sweetness be patient, and may the seeds of Ezekiel's loaf settle kindly in the temple of your body through every season ahead.